30-second delay. So we want to first welcome Bolanle from Black Blossoms and everyone else who's listening. It's really nice to have you all with us, but before we start, I'm going to describe what I'm wearing and who I am, and my pronouns she and her. My name is Nisia Marsh. I'm one of the co-founders and co-directors of Feminist Culture House, and I'm a Black person, and today I'm wearing a long sleeve white shirt that says ex-girl on the front with some jewelry, and I have brown hair that is currently braided.
So hi, welcome on my part as well. My name is Bolanle Tajudeen, my pronouns are they and them. I'm also one of the co-founders and co-directors of Feminist Culture House. I'm a white person with short, faded, seafoamy color hair and black rimmed glasses. And I'm wearing also a white long sleeve t-shirt. We're kind of matching with Nisia. And a single gold earring. Yeah, do you want to go next, Bolanle?
My name's Bolanle Tajudeen. My pronouns are she and her. I am wearing a black dress with white polka dots. I also have my hair in braids like Nisia, and I have beads on the end of my hair as well. I'm dark skinned black, and I've got like a reddish purple lipstick on.
And also with us is our colleague Katie Lennington, who's actually working in the background and doing all the technical sides.
Right.
So we're having this conversation with Bolanle as part of our exhibition, What's the Use of Intersectionality? That's currently happening outside spaces of Stoa Culture Center here in Helsinki, and also online during these conversations. So we commissioned some new artworks from artists for the outside space of Stoa. So there's some flags in the flagpoles and some other works that can be found also in images on our website.
And I just want to quickly introduce Black Blossoms, which was founded by curator and educator Bolanle in 2015 and has been supporting and highlighting Black women artists through an interactive public programme featuring exhibitions, panels and screenings throughout the UK. And then in 2020, Black Blossom School of Art and Culture was established to expand critical and diverse thought that will decolonise and disrupt Eurocentric art and creative education.
And this conversation will be visually documented by artist Paula Jalili, and you can find her work later on our website and Instagram. So again, welcome Bolanle, and thank you so much for being here with us. We're so excited to be speaking with you. We're just going to dive into some questions and start this conversation.
Yeah, so maybe the first is, could you tell us from your own perspective how you began and what is Black Blossoms and what you do?
Yeah, so thank you so much and congratulations on organising such a brilliant exhibition. So I started Black Blossoms when I was a student at art school, and the main reason at the time was because I just felt like I had all these talented Black people around me, and the university wasn't necessarily giving them a platform to showcase their work or just help them further their careers in the creative industries. And combined with that, there was also the attainment gap, which meant BAME students were 21% less likely than their white counterparts to graduate with a 2-1 or a first. So those statistics really shook me to my core, because I was just oh, okay, I'm less likely to graduate with that, and so are my friends. And what creative ways can we rage against the system? I didn't necessarily want to do campaigns, although a campaign did happen, but I really wanted a space for Black women and Black non-binary people to just celebrate themselves without necessarily having to like explain their existence. So we started by doing safe space conferences. We done one on mental well-being. We done one on like, so basically being in the creative industries, and we had a bunch of great speakers. And then I had like white colleagues and friends say to me that, oh, you know, we really want to support Black Blossoms and what you're doing. What can we do to help? And I was just like, at that time, it wasn't like cool to be like, yeah, cash at me. So it wasn't really a thing. And I probably wouldn't even do that now. But I didn't really know a way that I wanted to like share stories with them without feeling like all my labor has been taken by this. And so I was just like, there's nothing you can really do. You can just stay on the sidelines. But then I got the opportunity to create an exhibition at in University of the Arts London, but it was in their like front facing galleries. So it was in one of their really prestigious galleries. And that's the way for me that I felt that white people and men could like really show solidarity by coming to this exhibition. So I had 21 Black women and non-binary people exhibit their work, and we had like really in-depth artist statements as well. And we created a booklet. I can send links to the booklet because it's online. So we created a booklet which had their artist statements. We also had articles featured in the booklet. We had key terms, like, so it was a glossary of, so this is like, I would definitely say like in 2015, I think Black Lives Matter started around the same time. So it's bubbling, right, in society. So people are starting to talk about intersectionality, diversity, the art world's starting to be a little bit more receptive, but it's really grassroots at this time. So I found that people were really interested in like the booklet and the artworks that were on display. And also I felt like the artists themselves didn't have to give any of their emotional labor in explaining their existence, because the work I did choose to like showcase was quite political anyway in nature. They were talking about identity, hair, family, migration, colorism. So it was a really rounded way to like have a snapshot of experiences. And I kind of just trotted along with that. I'd done that exhibition, and then we've done like a touring exhibition around the UK. But I haven't curated I have done exhibitions, but I haven't curated like a physical art exhibition since 2017. And I think one of the biggest reasons I'm really scared, I'm actually petrified to showcase an exhibition, to do it, because I just feel like everyone's going to be expecting something that I don't know if I can deliver. And also, I think it's quite mainstream now that people are exhibiting work by Black women and non-binary people. And I feel like it's become, especially in London, I feel like it's become really commercial. And I don't necessarily know if that's the lens I want on an exhibition I curate of this nature, because it means so much to me. But the school, I love education. I've been teaching for many years now, and I don't necessarily like teaching for like educational establishments, because I find that inherently these institutions are mad racist. So what's the point? Like, I'm giving all this like labor to their students. I just don't think there's an appreciation of it. And so I've always been teaching in galleries, because people who pay to come to a gallery to get taught a course, they want to be there. Even though university students pay, I just find that it's a difference of wanting to be there and just doing it because you need to get a job, for your degree. And then the school was just born out of my love for teaching and knowing there was like really amazing scholars and artists that have so much to share. Their research, they have all this research, and they don't necessarily get the same platforms in education establishments either. And so I just found the school as a way to bring that kind of diverse thought and a diverse curriculum to an audience that was willing to engage with it. that also maybe want to change behaviors and change patterns that they're seeing replicated in the art world. So that's why I started the school. And I really, really enjoyed doing the school. Like, I actually love it. And I'm really excited about growing it as a platform and focusing more on the educational side, because that's another thing. You know, we can talk all day about Black artists being disenfranchised from the commercial art world, but the art world is based on like this scholarship thing, which is again white supremacy. But if the barrier to entry for Black artists is scholarship, let's increase the scholarship then. And that's what I hope Black Blossom does in a roundabout way. So it's working like, it's not, I don't necessarily see like, I think the important part for me right now at this stage is like making sure that, you know, we're helping marginalized communities in the art world frame their work on the back of some sort of scholarship. So I hope that makes sense.
That makes
sense in my head.
I'm just going to clarify, because you said in the beginning BAM, but I'm just going to let the audiences know that means like Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, which is a term like in the UK it's used quite often, but I think less so, more like,
yeah, sorry, I should have said POC. Yeah, I said because universities still
say BAM.
We use PO. I definitely use people of color.
That's okay. I just wanted to clarify that, like in Finland, if you're listening from here, then like it's a term that's quite like not regularly used. But I was actually wanted you to talk about and let audiences know about what courses you offer, because I've joined them, Orlan's joined them, but maybe like it's good for people to know what's coming, what's available, what they can join also.
Okay, so currently the course that you're on is Curating Black Art, which is led by Essay Ojonoro. Her course is really like, it's very theory based, looking at the historical, and I'll definitely say, yeah, well, last week was an historical sort of overview of the curation and how Black art can exist within space. So I learned so much from last week's lesson. I didn't know that Black artists were banned from showing with their white counterparts, which if you think about segregation, obviously, but I never thought about it in terms of the art world. So when people talk about the segregation of this art world, it's embedded, you know, because if two people can't show or two different races weren't able to show together at the inception of like museum and modernity, then like obviously there's this, it's continued. So that's one of the courses. There's a course that I teach, which is Art in the Age of Black Girl Magic, which looks at the contemporary and historical practices of non-binary and Black women artists. I really love teaching that as well. There's Art and Revolutionary China, which was led by Farron Gibson, which I think was such an interesting course actually, because we looked at, or Farron looked at the communism and like all the different political histories that China has gone through, and use the politics as the backdrop to talk about the art practices. And yeah, I'm even like, it was just very, very interesting. And I'm not gonna lie, I was super upset. There wasn't many Black people that joined that course. And I think it would have been really useful for people from our community to join, or more people of color. Like a lot of people of color didn't actually join. It was actually really heavily subscribed by white people. And that's great. I don't mind, like there's no race on who can join, but I just wish that there was more Black people that join, because I think it's important to understand how Black art doesn't exist in this vacuum. And there's just like this deeper kind of lineage. And I think Mao was taught by, I want to say Mao and James Baldwin, or I can't know if it's James. They've all met up. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. These lot were sharing philosophies with each other at one point. So it's important that we understand that context. And in terms of moving forward, so Black Blossoms is not taking a hiatus. We're just going to do a rebrand, because right now you have to pay every month for the course, but we want to do it so it's a subscription-based model, so it will be cheaper for people to subscribe monthly to courses and have 2 courses a month instead of 1, and just make it a bit more like fresh and editorial. So that's the plans for the future. But we do have Caribbean art coming up, so check that out on the website.
Thank you.
Cool. We were thinking about like asking you about intersectionality and your curatorial practice, but maybe you want to talk about it from the perspective of Black Blossoms in general, and like your thinking on how you build the educational program as well. Like, how does intersectional feminism affect that work?
Yeah, so before, like everyone, when I first became a feminist, I was just like a feminist. I didn't like, I was a feminist, and then I actually, early on in my feminist kind of journey, I read the Combahee River Statement Collective paper. I was about 22 at the time, and I remember I read this paper. It's just the Combahee River Statement Collective statement. I think it's 1962. And I read this paper and I just started crying, because it summarized everything that I felt as a Black person that's also a woman. And it spoke about this feeling of going crazy in society, because you're trying to like navigate all of these like social kind of barriers, and you know, they're invisible barriers as well. So before I knew about intersectionality, I knew about Black, and I was like, okay, I'm a Black feminist. And then when I learned about intersectional feminism from Kimberly Crenshaw and Patricia Hill Collins, these are all of like the people that I read. I just love them. As I was reading more, I was like, okay, I could go down the route of just being a Black feminist. I can be an intersectional feminist. I still call myself a Black feminist. But my work is very much intersectional. And I think intersectional feminism is Black feminism, but I think a lot more people feel comfortable being an intersectional feminist than a Black feminist, because I guess if you are an Asian woman, you might not want to call yourself a Black feminist. You might just want to be an intersectional feminist. And I think intersectionality is at the core of my work, because sometimes I don't feel like I'm doing intersectional feminism well. I will say that, because I think you've always got to critique what you're doing. But I would definitely say that when I'm devising courses or work that I'm doing, I'm always thinking about the most marginalized in my community and what I can do to like help them and open doors or talk about their stories without necessarily talking over them. In the way I've curated the courses so far, like I do sit there with the school, and I don't know if this is like too much information, because this is like, but I would be completely honest, like sometimes I think, okay, the school's quite heavily Black at the moment. I don't want the school to just focus on Black art forms. I want it to be more intersectional. And I guess it's interesting looking at it from a space of the Black being a Black woman, and I'm looking at my school thinking, okay, it needs to be more intersectional, because right now all the courses and all the tutors have been Black and all the courses kind of focus on Blackness, apart from art and revolutionary China, but we still had a Black tutor. So I'm even aware of like a privilege from that standpoint, that I want to be all encompassing of people of color, and I want the school to be like that as well. And I don't want to replicate like white supremacist kind of structures where it was so white for so long, and then all of a sudden they want to bring in people of color and Black people, because that doesn't make sense. I need it to be embedded quite early on in the school. I would say though, when I started Black Blossoms, I used the political version of Black, so which is Black, Asian, and again, like minority ethnics. That's how I used Black when I started Black Blossoms. And I got cussed out. Like, people were really angry with me. And I was just like, oh, I don't want to change the name because I like Black Blossoms. And then, like, I guess, like, I used Black as well in the political sense because I was heavily involved in the National Union of Students, and that's what how Black was being used. And again, I started Black Blossoms while I was in uni. So the talks that I would organize and stuff, like, it was with people of color. And it's not that I necessarily like using the term Black to describe people of color. I understand why people can see that it's problematic. But I don't know, I think the Black arts movement was onto something when they used the term to describe like as a political kind of stance.
Yeah.
I don't know how keen I am on like identity politics that we have at the moment. And I think using Black more politically can make the movement stronger, but it's very difficult, because obviously now we have BLM, we have, I feel like there's a lot of fractions in this movement towards like racial equality, and I don't have the answers how we deal with that. I think there's more fractions now than when I first became like part of like activism.
Yeah,
I feel like there was definitely more unity amongst people of color. And to be honest, I don't have the answers, but all I know is that from the perspective of building the school is that within the next 6 months, that there's going to be a doubling of tutors from different backgrounds, different marginalized backgrounds, and that's race, that's sexuality, that's gender. And another thing that I'm really big on in the school, again, is like making sure our tutors are really sensitive to how they describe and talk about different genders. So we did have one tutor, I'm not going to bait them out, they're slightly older, and I just felt like we had a conversation about pronouns and they just weren't getting it. And it's a shame because I think their knowledge is amazing. But I was just like, I don't know if the school can work with you again unless you're committed to like going on some kind of training. I can set up the training, I can give you the training, I can pay someone to help you deliver this training. And I think I don't want to necessarily write people the older community, because I think it's definitely something to do with age as well. So I don't want to write off people who are necessarily older that I wouldn't say they're transphobic, but I'll just say they're not being, well, I guess it's transphobic because they're not getting their heads around certain things. But I would want to see, okay, if you go through the step-by-step training, does that help? If not, then we can't work together. So that's something that I'm incorporating into the school as well. And yeah, I think if I could have like a utopia, I just want to see more unity between people of color. Because yeah, I just find that it's a bit all over the place at the moment. And it wasn't like that when I started in 2015, I would say 2013, actually, that's when I became part of the NUS. So in 2013, it was definitely more like, yeah, we're taking on the system together and there's this unity. And I guess even within that, we were talking about intersectionality and we were talking about privileges. And it felt like we were making like some sort of strife, but now it's definitely not that. It's definitely people are in their own quarters and trying to fight things solo. And, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it doesn't work for me personally. It doesn't work for the kind of world I want to see.
Yeah. And there's so many similarities with the training because we also offer trainings for institutions that need to learn more about diversity and inclusion and working with different artists who are trans or Black or POC. Like, I feel like sometimes it has to come from the people like most affected and like offering training that works and how to like move things forward.
Definitely. Like, I definitely want to, like, so now we've had, I think, 6 tutors, and I definitely want to like put them all on like the same training, to be honest, and just say, okay, here's the day, we're going to do this training and that training. And I guess I've never had to think about doing, like, it's quite, you know, having a team of staff that you have to like think about that for. I've never had to think about, usually I'm the one like telling institutions, well, you lot need to go on training. So now having a team of people around me that I have to do that for, it's like, oh, okay, wow. And then having people who are also kind of resistant to it, and you're thinking, well, this is my business, and like, this is how I want it to be. And like, what does that mean? And how do you navigate that? And like, also give people grace to like know that, you know, people are learning and unlearning things. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Nice. Actually, the next question is more about, as we just spoke about institutions, how, when you began, you were working with quite a big institution, like doing the training from there. How did that partnership begin? And how did you kind of navigate through when you were at Tate?
Okay.
Yeah. How did you kind of navigate working within a structure?
I get, you know, it's so funny. Okay, you see, this is the quick answer, but I'm going to give a longer answer. So no, the quick answer is, yeah, there's institutions, and then there's people within those institutions, and the people make up the institution, I agree, but then there's always people within those institutions that are just like you, fighting for the same kind of change that you want to see. And luckily enough, I just so happened to come across 2 wonderful people who were fighting for the same thing as me. And, you know, it's kind of crazy. So the way I got that partnership at Tate was because I actually went for a job at Tate, and I didn't get the job. I do know who got the job. I'm not going to say nothing. I'm going to leave it there. But it was interesting that I didn't get the job. But one of the hiring managers really liked my work, and they asked me to come in and talk to them. And they were just like, yeah, you know, even though we didn't give you the job, we just think you need a little bit more experience in a gallery setting, and we're really willing to give you that. Is there any kind of programs that you've been thinking of that you'd like to do? And at the time, I was still doing Black Blossoms, but I wanted something a little bit more academic. So I was going to start a blog called Art in the Age of Black Girl Magic, where I was going to like post content that was a bit more educational, because I couldn't see how it would work with Black Blossoms at the time. Like, you know, I wanted it to be a new strand of programming coming from Black Blossoms instead of doing it like Black Blossoms as a whole. So I remember, and then he turned around and he was just like, oh, why don't you just teach it? And I was just like, what? Let me tell you something. So he offered me to do that in February, and the course wasn't until November. I did not leave the library for like 10 months.
Wow.
I was researching every day. I was shook. Like, and I hadn't done that much teaching. I think I had just briefly mentioned that I was doing a teaching qualification at UAL. And like, I think he took that to mean like, yeah, cool, you can teach. Like, let's go. And I was just like, okay. And also, I must say, he's a white guy. And I think that kind of boldness that I maybe wouldn't have thought of myself, like white men naturally have that in it, because they can just be bold and open up doors for themselves and like just basically do whatever they want. I didn't have that, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is really scary. Like, I'm gonna have to teach. I haven't even got an MA in like art. Like, what is going on? And yeah, like, it was very, very difficult. And I was at the first year, I didn't even care about Tate as an institution and all the things they had going on, because I was just so focused on trying to like deliver a really special course that was really good. That's actually where I met Pashan, who people can't see. But, sorry, they were one of the first participants on that course. And you know, I was a bit shaky. It wasn't, you know, I was still delivering. I had the research, it was the delivery then. And I was just like, oh my gosh. But then in my second, when they asked me to deliver the course again, I guess I was more thinking about Tate as an institution and what it meant to be delivering a course there. And, you know, I had built up trust between the two members of staff that I was working with. So there was deeper discussions around, like, you know, the institution and, you know, their practices and what they were trying to do and how they were trying to change. And all I can say is that there's always going to be people who are like you that want to change things, but then there's going to be the board of trustees who are nothing like us. You know, there's going to be the heads of the different departments, again, who have very different motives to what I have, to what their junior staff have. And I think it's about, there's a word, it is about being, it begins with S. I want to say it begins with S, but I can't think of the word right now. But it's about doing things and making the change that they can't necessarily tell that what you're doing at the time. Because, you know, the Art in the Age of Black Girl Magic course, I always say this, when we spoke about it, they was like, oh, it's possibly going to be a lot of white women curators coming to the course, blah, 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 blah. And so this was physical. Yeah, we can talk about this. So, yeah. So when I started teaching at Tate, they said to me, our main audience for our courses is white middle-class women. Most of them are from other museums and galleries, especially for a course like this. So I was like, okay. And then when I opened the door on the first day, it was just a bunch of Black faces. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. Instantly, I was here. I was just like, whew. It was just so lovely. And then that's the word I'm looking for is subversion. So once that happened, you know, the staff who were helping me deliver the course started giving out free tickets to the gallery shows. Everyone part of that cohort was getting invited to like private views. And these things are really important because that's how you build your networks in the art world. You know, that's how you build your cultural capital. And that's subversion. And that's how you do things under the radar without people necessarily even know what you're doing. So I want to say the first class there was like 30 people, and every single one of them had a chance to go to like the Tate patron party, to go to like private views. And this isn't really given to people who just do courses at Tate, you know. Usually it's like you do the course, see you later, bye. But there was like the team that I was working with, they were really insistent in making Tate a more welcoming environment for them and their friends. And like, so they've done a lot of things to like facilitate that. What I find really interesting is that although physical courses that I've taught at institutions have always drawn in a huge Black audience, online, I'm finding that the white audience feels very comfortable to take part online and discuss these issues. And I find that very interesting because then I'm like, okay, is it being in a space where we physically have to talk about race? Even though we're not talking about diversity, but we're talking about racial things, is that uncomfortable? But if you're in your presence of your own home, you can do it, and it's maybe a more palatable way to take it in. I don't know, but I found that really interesting over the last 12 months.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I had at Tate, I've done two courses. Altogether, I would say it's about 60 to 70 students, and we only ever had 2 white people. Now, it's very flipped on the courses where we have quite a huge white intake. From what I can visibly see, I don't ask monitoring questions, which I will start, but I find that interesting. And like, yeah, I just think, I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting thing to generally, like in the world, to think about and look at after, if there is an after to this phase of only meeting online and doing courses online.
Yeah.
I'm having a sneak peek at our questions. Yeah, so we've been talking with with some of the other people already and had some like pre-discussions with other organizations coming to these conversations. And there was this one question that someone raised and wanted to ask other speakers is to like how to deal with wanting to bring your work and your politics to the front, and then at the same time try to keep yourself kind of back and not become like the face of, for example, like Black curating.
Yeah.
So have you thought about that?
Definitely. I think the best way to do that is to just work and collaborate with people. I think collective working is really important. I really enjoy it. And plus, one person can't do everything. I always think it's a red flag when people are trying to do a lot of things by themselves, because it's like, oh, okay, why? Like, you just can't. You just really can't. So I'm doing a project right now with like a really great institution, and it took me so long to like get onto the ball with the project, to the point I had to just be like, actually, I know amazing curators that can do this. So how about they do it, and I'll just oversee it. Like, yeah. And I'm really happy with that, because some things like they have to get done, and someone has to be like, okay, this needs to happen, blah 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 blah. But other people need the skills and the experiences and the networks as well. So for me, it's always been about like, who can I work with to get this done, and how can I work with them. It's really difficult when people always want to put my face on things. So that I find that like very like, oh, my face is here, my face is there. I know I do, because you know what, like I don't really take a lot of press pics as well. So it's just like, oh my God, like I've just got these pictures of me everywhere. Like I always do I do press releases. So I have a colleague, Pashan Anderson and Sharice Chirere, and they're project managing and curating this project that we're working on. And I'm like, yeah, write a press release and also include your images. So then when they talk about it, it's not necessarily Bolanle from Black Blossoms, because it's like, actually, it's Pashan and Sharice from Black Blossoms are delivering this. And I think that's the important part, is just like allowing people to be the face of what they've done in the organization or in the movement, and knowing that it doesn't take away anything from you because you're not the face of it. I don't necessarily feel like I'm the face of Black curating in the UK or Black feminism in the UK, and I'm so happy because that's stress. No, that's just so much stress, and like people expect you to be a voice, and like, I always feel like you fall short when you talk to me sometimes, because you're expecting like all of these amazing things. I just don't have it, to talk about. So, but the thing is, I know amazing people that do, and I think for me, that's the most important thing, is like doing introductions, making sure people are meeting the right people. And that's another thing I love about the Black Blossom School, is that we usually have breakout rooms in each of the sessions, and there I think that's where the magic really lies, because you could be in conversation with an artist, an emerging artist, a curator from a really established gallery, and you've all been put into this breakout room to discuss something. And then I've also prompted you to share social medias, and that's how you build up that cultural currency. And that's how I think people don't know what they don't know. So if you only know this one person to be doing art exhibitions, Black art exhibitions, that's who you're only going to think that exists. But once you start building and expanding people's networks so they know more people, you'll find that, like, because I think it happens more in the Black community, that it's always the same people getting headed up for curatorships, or it's always the same, everyone's always going to the same person. But I know for a fact there's literally hundreds, because I'm in a WhatsApp group full of hundreds. You know what I mean? So there's definitely more than one.
Yeah.
And that's why that's the most important thing about the school. And that's what I want to build that community, like where it's like, oh, there's Nissia in Finland doing something. Let's holler. You know what I mean? Like, it's really important. So for me, not becoming the face is just about opening up my networks and being open to collaborating and really making sure that people know that it's this person who's done the work, not necessarily me. And I think putting the tutors' faces on our website, which is going to be happening, and also on our marketing material for social media, we put each of the individual tutors' faces. And I think that's important as well, just so people can see that, oh, this person looks like me, so they're doing it, they're talking about it, maybe it's for me as well. But not becoming the face of a movement, I don't know. I think a lot of people don't want to be, unless you're a narcissist, I guess. But yeah, I think it's kind of stressful. Like, when I see like how people get onto like influencers and activists who are like influencers as well, I just think, wow, like that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of that's something I don't want to do.
So lovely to hear about that, because I think it is really a feminist practice to keep bringing up your peers for these opportunities and sharing, like you said, the cultural capital. And it's just not done enough. Like, I feel like it's so important to always talk about it so that we normalize that as a practice.
Yeah, and like, I guess one of my favorite quotes is about sideway networking. Like, I don't really do that whole networking up. Like, it's very rare that I'm going to message like a gallery director or something, because to be honest, most of the time they're literally thinking about their like financial spreadsheet. Like, they don't even care about do you know what I mean? They're not thinking about art or curating at all. But if you're talking to someone in that gallery that's the gallery assistant or, you know, the program manager, like, those are the people I think personally that as a feminist practice that I like to talk to and network with and, you know, build something with, because they're on the same level. And opening up like all of those networks, like you said, Orlan, like that is the feminist practice. And it's not done enough. And I wonder if it's because like there is this like huge emphasis on capitalism and competition in our work. And I live in a state of abundance, right? And like, I very much get this practice just from myself, and also Evan Ifekoye, who talks about abundance. And I think Evan Ifekoye is a prime example of abundance and collective working and leadership, because the sound system boss got nominated for the Turner Prize. And, you know, Evan Ifekoye themselves is somebody who could by themselves get nominated for a Turner Prize. They're very strong. But I know for a fact that Evan is probably way more happy for the collective to have been nominated for that Turner than them being nominated by themselves at this instance. And that just means that all of those people in that collective, their careers have somewhat been made from that. And that to me is even more special, because I love rap, right? And for me, it's about coming up with your friends. Who wants to come up by themselves? You're just going to be at the top very lonely, or you're going to be around people that you don't really like, that don't really like you can't trust them. But when you've been working with people for a certain amount of years, and you keep on collaborating with them, you keep on making magic happen and success happen, it adds to that art story. For me, that's even more important, that we have to tell the next generation that collective working in the arts is way more important than this individualistic kind of way that galleries especially would love you to do. Institutions love you to work silo, because then they can really take the piss, right? You know, there's no checks and balances when you're working by yourself with an institution. But when you're part of something like a movement or a collective, and they know that you've got people backing you up, they act differently. So even for your own protection, I think it's important to like not work by yourself, because, or at least let them know that even though I'm doing this work with you and it's by myself, I have a bunch of people that if anything happens, they're gonna come. So yeah, I've always enjoyed working with people. So, and honestly, I can't work by myself. Like even that, I'm gonna move into a new studio soon, and I think I'm gonna move into a shared space, because I was in a studio by myself and I just felt really sad. Like I was like, okay, this is a bit lonely. Like, yeah. So
yeah. I think also when we're doing like trainings or workshops, we always do it in pairs, just so that we don't have to like work alone or like facilitate alone. I think it's really important to the collective work.
Yeah.
And yeah, institutions hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hate it. They genuinely hate. As soon as you start mentioning, oh, okay, but I'll be working with this person, that they're just like, firstly, they think about budget, but they have the money. I don't want to hear no institution talking about they don't have money. That's a straight up lie. They have money, right? And also, I just think it means that it makes you stronger. You know that it's like they can't faff about, because a lot of these institutions like to faff about, which is such a shame, because it's usually them calling you for the training, innit? And then they just want to play games. So it's just like, okay, you guys are really not serious.
I actually wanted to speak with you about the process of moving Black Blossoms online. Was it due to COVID? Because I know it was 2020, and then you
definitely.
100%. What was just happening?
What happened was, right, so Black Blossoms is just like, it wasn't really like, I wasn't doing much work through Black Blossoms. I was really focusing on art in the age of Black girl magic as my research, hopefully wanting to like get a book. And Black Blossoms was just there. It's just like, okay, I'll post art stuff here and now. And then like, I wasn't taking it seriously, like as like, oh, this platform is going to be the platform, you know. It wasn't really, I guess I didn't really have the like financial, like, and that's another thing. I don't come from like a rich family, you know. I'm a working class single Black mum, so like I was doing what I could do to get by. So a lot of my work was freelance work. So the day that they announced the museums were closing, I swear, like, my emails were just like, we're really sorry. That's all like my emails were getting. So all the money that I had like lined up for like the first 2 quarters was just like going. So I was sitting there and I was thinking, damn, man, this is be a broke, struggling artist. Like, this is like, wow. And then I applied for Arts Council, got that. So that gave me a bit of time to think. And one of my friends called me. She runs a program called the London Drawing Group, Louisa, and she was like, Bola, do you want to teach a course for me online? You know, we made £1,000 last week. I was like, what? What? And she was like, yeah, like, or, you know, I'll give you 50% of the ticket sales. Do you just want to deliver a lecture? And I've got about 15, 16 lectures for Black Blossom at the time. I've got a bit more now. So I had about 15, 16 lectures for Art in the Age of Black Girl Magic. So I thought, okay, let me just see what it's like through your platform. Let me just see. And then I done it, and I was just like, that was really easy. Like, I didn't have to leave my house. Like, I had more time. You know, I was just like, this is great. And then I decided to do the Art in the Age of Black Girl Magic course just by itself. It wasn't through the school. I just wanted to test it. So I was like, okay, let me just test this out and do a 4-week course. Same price bracket that we charge the courses for now. And let me see if people sign up. People signed up, and I was like, whoa, like, people really like this. And then I delivered that course, and then I was just like, I can't deliver every single course in it. And I was just like, what about if I like get people who I know that have like got really good research to deliver courses through the school? Or let me set up something. At the time, I didn't even know that I was going to call it the Black Blossom School of Art and Culture. I just knew that I was going to set up an online learning platform. And then I think I was literally laying in bed and I was just like, just add art and culture onto Black Blossoms, like, perfect, it makes sense. And you know, yeah, it it just happened just like that. And I think my first couple of lecturers, like Lisa, had never taught before, but I knew that her extensive research in Black British art would be brilliant for the platform. So I got her, I got Essay, I had Evan Ifakoye, I've got Richard Mark Rawlins, who's an amazing Trinidadian artist delivering courses. And I was just like, yeah, like this makes so much sense. Yeah. And like, I nearly backed out of launching it. But yeah, I was just like, people are gonna think, who are you? Like, I was really nervous. Like, I think it's really, a lot of people would perceive me to be like quite bold and out there, but you know, I think many of us are always battling like these eternal thoughts of being good enough. Should I do it? What are people gonna think? And trust me, like I was thinking 101 things. I was thinking people are gonna be like, who is she? Why does she think she can have an online school? And then I thought, okay, what if people don't sign up and I have to pay tutors? Like, what's gonna happen? Like, so I had a lot of doubt, but I was talking to one of my friends who's an artist, and at the time she was living with a journalist, and I was telling her about the school, and her friend overheard, and her flatmate overheard and was like, oh, I'm gonna write an article. So the flatmate called me and was like, the article's being published tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but the article's being published on this date. Is your website gonna be ready? And I was like, yeah, sure. Listen, like literally like 6 hours before, she's like, yeah, we're gonna launch it. She's like, you haven't like, you know, made your... I was sweating buckets. I was there doing the website. I was like, oh my God. And like, I was just thinking like, I have to launch it because they're writing an article about it, which I you know, hand on heart, like I was very, very blessed to have those like early articles happen about the school, because I think it really propelled the success of the school in the beginning. So, but that's what pushed me, is because I didn't want an article to come out and there wasn't a website. Like that would have just been crazy and dumb. So I was super, super nervous, and the pandemic definitely was part of the reason. And I've said it in one of the articles, I never want to be in a situation again where I rely on freelance work just to pay me, because I'm a single mum, you know, I've got to pay my rent, I've got to put bills, I've got to pay bills, I've got to feed my child. And, you know, as I love the arts, I also don't want to leave the art world. I want to stay in the industry, and it's been really hard for me to like navigate this working in this industry. And I think being able to work for myself just gives me that bit more, it gives me that bit more room to be myself as well, because I'm not necessarily like say for example, this year, if I didn't want to work with Tate because of their like stuff with Jade Montserrat that's quite public, I don't have to put myself in that situation where I'm working with institutions that are not being kind to my community. I can actually say, do you know what, fix up there, and then we can revisit this in a couple of months. But before, that was my bread and butter, a lot of the like freelance work with institutions that I was getting. So the school started for like those two reasons. I wanted to be financially stable, or like financially a bit more stable, and the pandemic. So I'm not grateful to the pandemic, but I don't think the school would have been successful without a pandemic, because people weren't doing things like that online. It would have been a bit like people, I think young people, they were doing like learning, and people use Skillshare, but I think it just forced people to like do online things, isn't it? And reaching a global audience.
We're getting quite close to running out of time, but we wanted to just ask you about your like hopes and dreams for this year.
Oh gosh.
To
make it to the end of the year. But one of my biggest hopes and dreams, like for the art world, is to really stop seeing like Black lives and Black art as like this gimmick that they can like use for like commercial attention and success. Like I want to see the arts engage in a more sustainable way with marginalized communities. I just think everything's quite gimmicky on a commercial level. I just don't know if I can trust it, you know, because you've had galleries that have been around for like 50, no, okay, if we're just talking about commercial galleries, you've had commercial galleries that have been around for like 10, 20 years and they've never done like Black art shows. And then all of a sudden they're doing it. And then they're not even being nice to Black curators. They're literally being somewhat nice to Black artists, but, you know, still exploiting them. So my hopes and visions for the art world is to see less exploitation of marginalized art voices, because it's a big problem. And I kind of feel like it's kind of going to get a little bit more intense. And I'm kind of trying to, like, that's why I'm so happy for the school, because it kind of means I can stay out of it. I'm always getting emails, can you help curate this exhibition? I'm just like, no, like, because you've never engaged with me on my work before. Why now? It just makes it a bit, especially to sell art to people who haven't necessarily got any other Black artwork in their collections. Are you even going to put the artwork up in your house? Are you going to put it in storage and then try to flip it in a few years? Like, what is your intention behind wanting to own several pieces of artworks by Black artists who are up and coming? I don't trust it. So, and like, I just feel like there's been a lot of getting rich off Black lives already, and I just don't want to be part of that. I just want to wait until it's, you know, we're back. I don't think it's ever going to die down, but I do think looking at history, if we look at history, what happened during the Black arts movement is going to tell you what's going to happen. So in the 80s, the Black arts movement was huge. Like, they were getting grants, they were getting money, they were getting showcased. And then the YBAs happened, which is the Young British Artists. And it kind of like shadowed the Black British art movement and kind of shut it down. And that I'm waiting to see how that's handled, because I can kind of see a bubbling generation of artists who are non-Black. Some are Black as well that will be part of the if we have a new generation of YBAs, I definitely think there are going to be Black artists involved in that. But I want to see in what ways it happens before I decide how I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want my work ever historically misrepresented, and I don't want the youngers in the future to call me a coon. So, you know, I want to stay down.
Okay. I think then, was that every question?
Yeah, that was all the questions now. It's been so lovely to speak with you and listen to you talk about Black Blossoms and your work. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I hope everyone found it useful, and please feel free to like send me a DM or an email if you want me to elaborate more on any points.
Yes, definitely. Thank you once again. It was really lovely.
And yeah, it was useful for us. So.
Yeah. So.
Maybe that's fine. Bye. Thanks again.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.